What's up guys, welcome to this edition of The Review Show where I'm talking video games, starting with Carrion. So Carrion is a reverse horror game. If you don't know what that is, basically you play as a creature or a monster who is escaping captivity in some sort of lab or facility and trying to get out basically while killing everything in your way. So most horror games, you actually play as the human or the person trapped in there with the monster trying to escape the monster. So that's why this is a reverse horror game. It's very interesting. It's from Devolver Digital. They published it. It's okay. I've been looking around at what other people think of this game, and I'm really interested by one thing in particular that they say. They talk about the movement. Apparently a lot of people are liking this game because of the movement, because of how fluid everything is, whereas that's the one thing I absolutely hate about it. I think the movement of this game as the monster is really sensitive to the point where I flick the analog stick and all of a sudden I'm shooting off to the other side of the screen. It doesn't allow for strategy very well. It doesn't allow for careful, precise movements very well. I feel like everything's kind of loosely in my control. And I've tried to adjust some of these settings, and there isn't really an option to do that. So I don't really know what people are getting at when they're talking about the movement. Visually, this is a very retro looking game. I don't think it's the prettiest thing ever, but it gets the job done. I think the depiction of the monster with all the tentacles and the red colours and so on is really quite well done. But everything else is fairly standard. Nothing really stands out in my opinion in that regard. Gameplay wise, you pick up powers along the way. Basically the more you kill, the more you find these like nodes and hotspots in the environment. You will then grow as a creature. So you start off as like this little like one tentacle, and eventually you become this huge thing with lots of little grabbing tentacles all over the place. So that's interesting. The combat is basic to the point where, is it really combat? You basically use the right analog stick to control the tentacles and then grab opponents, bring them in, gobble them up and whatever. Or you can use things from the environment like grab walls and vents and bits of wood and so on and just throw them around the place. There is a fun element to the chaotic destruction of it all. There is a story here as well though. There are moments where you will play into flashbacks, and that's where the story really develops. You'll see the origins of the creature and so on, and what happened before you break out. And I think that adds much needed story. It's not a long game, it's only about 4 or 5 hours I think it was. It's okay. There's not much else to say about this except that it is a maze of a game as well, in that it's very easy to get lost. And because you're a monster, you don't have a map. So if you go to one location, all of a sudden your next objective could be right over here, but it doesn't tell you how to get here. And that's a problem. So much of my time in this game was just looking for the right way to go, looking for the right thing that I had to do. And it's really hard to do that. There are some puzzle-like elements where you'll get to like a door and you'll see that there's like a switch up here that you've got to get to. So it means you have to go all the way around and then find the switch to open the door and then to get to the other section. It's really light and simple stuff. Again, the hardest part of it is finding your way around. And there is a good variety in locations. It isn't just like laboratories and this facility. They're all like caves and there's like water areas and so on. So they do mix it up that way around. And yeah, Carrion's alright. I do think it's interesting. I do think it's something you should check out if the idea of playing as a monster in a reverse horror game appeals to you. Otherwise, it's not going to be one of my top games of the year. Next up, something that might be one of my top games of the year, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockdown, or Knockout. I can't remember what it is. Is it Knockdown? Because I just call it Fall Guys. Next up is Fall Guys. So Fall Guys is basically a Takeshi's Castle style game show that you play as one of the contestants. It's super fun. Very colourful, very bright, very quirky. There's an element of comedy to pretty much everything that you do here. And like I said, it's almost like Takeshi Castle style game show. So if you don't know what that is, basically it starts off with 60 contestants in this game, all in the same arena. A lot of the stuff is like get from here to here, but avoid all the obstacles in between. There's like boulders coming your way and there's like slippy surfaces. and sometimes there'll be like a seesaw that you've got to get on. Obviously everyone going at once, it becomes really risky and dangerous at times. But it's super fun, super friendly. This is a real ball of a time. There are, I think, like 20 plus games, and they're adding more games as they go along. The games are varied to an extent. They're all ones where you are going from point A to point B, avoid the obstacles, get over the obstacle course. Those ones are quite fun, including ones where like there's doors sliding up, or where there's just sleepy platforms you got to get across, or there's seesaws and stuff like that, or there's rotating platforms and stuff. Very fun, I enjoy them ones. There are team-based ones where you've got to like push a ball to the end point. The quickest one to get there wins, and the last team to get there is eliminated. There are ones where you've got to different areas dedicated to each team, and you've got to get as many balls into your area as possible. Again, the team with the fewest is eliminated. And then there are ones where you've got to grab a tail. So these ones are a bit more frustrating because everyone runs at the same speed. There's no way to like sprint or increase your speed. You can dive forward, but then that's not really going to help you grab the tail unless you do some really cool timing. So these tail ones are the tough ones. These ones are the more challenging ones. Then there's the end game content, which is much more focused ones, because at that point a lot of people have been eliminated throughout the game, and it gets really tough with some of them. Some of them are really easy, some of them are really tough and challenging. But I think there's a good mix of the challenge in there. This is the sort of game which I would encourage you to play with family or friends. There's no split screen element, it is solely multiplayer online, so that's a bit of a deterrent to it. I also don't think there's ability to do custom matches yet. There are some things where they are clearly going to work on things and add stuff in there. It is a game as a service type of thing, so they're going to constantly add it, they're going to constantly update it. We already know that the next update is going to be medieval focused, changing up some games and some cosmetic elements. Speaking of the cosmetics, the more you play through the game, the more you level up, the more cosmetics you get, the more you can design your character, who basically looks like an egg. And yeah, I like this game a lot. I think it's one of the most fun games released this year. I do think it's going to be a real contender to take on battle royale games like Fortnite and what's the other one, Apex Legends. If you haven't picked this up on the PS Plus subscription, you've missed out now, but I do think it's worth your time to go and get it. You can get it on Steam as well. It is going to eventually come to Xbox consoles. I imagine it will be on the Switch as well. Yeah, a lot of fun. I like this game a lot. Final game I'm going to talk about is one that I'm actually still playing at the minute. So not a full review, so just be aware of that. I've played about 6-7 hours of it, and it is Spiritfarer. So Spiritfarer is out on the Switch. It's also out on Xbox Game Pass. I think it's on other consoles maybe, I'm not too sure. But this is a very different game from the past two I've talked about. Here you are playing as Stella and her cat, who's in the afterlife. And instead of moving on to the afterlife, you're kind of in like a purgatory area where you are guiding the souls from the purgatory into the afterlife, making sure they're satisfied, making sure they're ready to move on, essentially. And when you really grasp that that's what's going on, there's a really cool running theme and emotion behind all of this. All the characters you meet and interact with are actually people who Stella knew in reality. So you'll find like one of her friends, you'll find like an uncle, or you'll find a teacher that she had. And you basically have to manage their needs by crafting areas for them to live in during this purgatory on your boat, or giving them certain meals and getting certain ingredients, or doing certain quests and going and getting certain objects for them. This is basically a management simulator, really. You have this boat that it's given to you. You can construct things, but you've only got so much space, so you need to get supplies to expand the space. There are a lot of mini games in here, as well as all this mini management stuff. The mini games include like taking down jellyfish to get glims, which will basically act as like a currency. You can then go and find crates and get different resources that can then help build your garden and do some gardening. All of the buildings that you put onto your ship have purposes. So if you get like a linen shack, there's like a little mini game there where you can basically turn the threads into linen, and then there's like a wood carving thing as well. The mini games are quite interesting. There's a fishing mechanic in there. They're very simplistic as well though. not at any point was I bored by the minigames, and I feel like 7 hours in though, I've experienced what this game has. Except for the story. I'm going to keep on with the story because I feel like there's going to be something that's going to like punch me in the gut at some point. I think like the story is going to be something special by the end of it. But I believe it's like a 30-hour game, so I've got a lot to go through. But yeah, you're basically trying to make all your crewmates happy to the point where they're willing to move on to the afterlife. There's a cool, interesting story. The aesthetics, the colors are all really beautiful and gorgeous and interesting. It looks like an anime cartoon, which is cool. I don't usually like that aesthetic, but for some reason this one's working for me. Great sound design and great sound and music and score and stuff like that. Really, really good in fact. Yeah, I like this game. But like I said, I feel like 7 hours in, I've experienced what this game has to offer. I'm not sure about the next like 20 plus hours. What am I going to be doing in that that's different from what I've already done? I will say that this is a very peaceful, very relaxing game. It's the sort of game you can just put on some music or put on a podcast in the background, because all the things you really need to focus on and pay super close attention to is like the dialogue, which is text-based. It's not got fully voiced dialogue in this game. There are little like grunts and sounds and like huh and hey and stuff like that. Little things to give them a little extra bit of character. And the actual animation behind the characters is really good. It really does a good job of selling who these individuals are, even though they look like animals. Like one looks like a frog, one looks like some sort of like reindeer kind of creature, and there's a snake and so on and such. But the animals that they portray and the characteristics that they have really mesh and merge quite well. But yeah, Spiritfarer, I'm liking it a lot. I'm going to continue playing it. I do recommend it. It's not going to be for everyone. Again, it's a long game. There are going to be some tedious areas and elements for some players who don't want to keep doing all the management and resource gathering and stuff like that. It does feel like there's a grind to it, and hopefully that's not going to impact me too much. It hasn't yet. So yeah, I'm going to keep with it. If I had to recommend any of the free games I talked about today, it is Fall Guys. Fall Guys I think is great. It's a game that everyone can play, and I think everyone will have some sort of fun with. It is a game that you can play on your own, but I think you will have a lot more fun with other people. And that's all I'm talking about today. Until next time, thanks for watching, but before you go, subscribe to my channel to get more content like this. Chances are if you like this content, there's something else on my channel you will also like. And of course, most importantly, not most importantly, but I'm going to point it out anyway, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grandbert to get all my thoughts and opinions as I get them. Until next time, now it's time to say thank you for watching.